Hi, good day, Year 9. This is actually our last lesson of week 5 because tomorrow is a bank holiday. Yesterday we were looking at the blood and the 4 components of the blood, so hopefully you remember those. Today we're going to be looking at the structures that carry this blood around the body. So we're going to be looking at the different blood vessels. So there's actually 3 main groups of blood vessels. We need to know the names of those 3, and we need to know what they look like, and how they're adapted, as always, for their function. So before we get going, a quick little activity for you to do. You could do any one of these 3 things. So I either want you to define 3 keywords from last lesson, or write down 3 key points from last lesson, or summarize everything from the lesson in a paragraph. Remember that lesson was on the different parts of the blood. So can you pause this video now and have a go at those? Just one of those. Okay, so hopefully we've had a go at that. You can go back to your notes and check whether what you had was correct, what you put down was correct. But it's just obviously important to remember the stuff from last lesson because it is going to be relevant for this lesson as well. So we need to state the 3 types of blood vessel. We need to explain how the structures of the blood vessel relates to the function. And also we're going to be looking at something called the double circulatory system, which is what we and mammals have, and explain why that's important compared to the circulatory system that organisms like fish have. Okay, so blood vessels, really important because as we said in the last lesson, the bigger an organism is, the more it needs a system in place to get oxygen and glucose and things like that to all of the cells, because the surface area has gotten smaller in relation to the volume, so things can't just diffuse across our skin and that will be enough. We have to get it to all of the cells that are inside. And interesting fact, every single one of our cells in the body is within 0.05 millimeters of a capillary. Now we're going to look at what capillaries are, but they are one of the types of blood vessels in the circulatory system. So that means every single cell is incredibly close to a blood vessel. So then the oxygen and the glucose can diffuse into the cell, and any waste products from the cell can easily diffuse into the blood, be taken away. Okay, obviously you can't use the microscopes at the moment, so I'm going to show you some pictures of some microscope slides, and they are of blood vessels. We're going to start with the artery and the vein, and then we're going to look in the next slide of the capillary. Okay, what I would like you to have a go at is making a scientific sketch, a scientific drawing. So that is just single pencil lines. It doesn't need shading or anything like that. It's just a simple drawing just showing the key structures, okay, of the 3 different vessels. So we'll start off with this microscope slide, and you can see that there is one that has got a very thick red circle in it, and that is the artery. So in the middle it says artery lumen, and the lumen is the space in the middle of the blood vessel. So it's got the space in the middle, and then it's got a very thick red patch, and then also a thick sort of pinker patch on the outside. So that is our artery. On the right hand side you can see that there's the vein lumen, and that's much larger compared to the artery. Then you've got a much thinner red circle going around it, and then you've got the pinky bit on the outside as well. But again, that's also a lot thinner. So if you would like to pause the video, make a quick sketch of those two. Okay, next one is a capillary. Now, this has to be on a separate slide because these are so much smaller than the arteries and the veins. It's unfortunate you can't see it in comparison, but these are much, much smaller. You can see that there is RBC in an arrow, that's a red blood cell, and the circle going around it, that red blood cell, is the capillary. So the thing about capillaries is that they are very, very small. So these blood vessels are the ones that you get networks of them everywhere, in your muscles, in your lungs, digestive system, lots of different places, and they're incredibly small. So that is a capillary. You'll notice there isn't a thick red bit going around the outside, so they're very small and they have very, very thin walls. Now here is the three blood vessels, but this is done in a slightly easier manner, so you can actually see the structures. So you can see, if you look on the left-hand side, you have the arteries, and the arteries have that really thick, muscular wall around the outside. They have a much smaller lumen in comparison to their size, compared to the vein, which is in the middle, which has a bigger lumen, and very, very much thinner muscular walls. And the one on the right, again, this is not to scale. You have got the capillary, and the capillary is actually only 1 cell thick. So you can see on the outside, you've got those cells, those blue dots and nuclei of the cells that form these blood vessels. So the three blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Now we are going to go through some information on these three different blood vessels. So if you want to add any labels to your sketches that you made from the previous slides, then you can do that. And what I'd like you to do underneath them, or asterisks here, it doesn't really matter, add any extra information that you didn't know about the blood vessels. So we're going to start with arteries. You don't need to write down all of this information. This is just so I remember to say it all. But what you do need to annotate on your diagram is how they are adapted for their function, okay, and what their function actually is. So arteries take blood away from the heart. So as you can imagine, as it's just coming out the heart, it's under very, very high pressure. So arteries away from the heart, high pressure. So that is why they have those very thick muscular walls. If they were as thin as veins, they would just burst. So they need thick muscular walls because the blood is under so much pressure. So if you want to add that to your diagram, that would be great. You might want to pause the video whilst you do that. Right, next up is veins. So go to your vein sketch. Veins have got much thinner muscular walls, and that's because they're under much lower pressure. So after all of the blood has been around the body, all of the oxygen's gone into the cells, the blood then returns to the heart and is under very, very little pressure. Now, one of the problems with being under such little pressure is that the blood can go the wrong way. So if you go upside down or anything like that, the blood would just pour up the wrong way of the vein. So the adaptation that veins have is they actually have valves inside them. So veins contain the valves. And the valves are really useful because they stop the blood going the wrong way. We say that it stops backflow of blood. So we're going to see these structures, these valves, when we look at the heart next week, because there's valves in the heart. And they have the same function. It stops blood going the wrong way, stops the backflow of blood. So how are veins adapted for their function? They have valves that stops the backflow of blood because it's under much lower pressure. So pause the video, take what you want from it in your notes, and then we'll go to the last one, which are capillaries. Okay, so capillaries. Now these are teeny tiny blood vessels. I think, and don't quote me on this because it's probably going to be one of those misconception ones, but I think they say that if you join all of your blood vessels from end to end, because there's so many of these, actually it would go around the world or something like that. It's a huge amount of these. We have a huge amount of these blood vessels inside us, making a very, very long path. Now they are the smallest of the blood vessels, very hard to see, so we use microscopes to do that. And these are the places where the exchange takes place. So this is where oxygen will diffuse into the capillaries from the lungs, so you find them around the lungs. This is where those soluble food molecules diffuse into it from the intestines. And you're also going to have lots of them in things like muscles, so that oxygen can go into the cells and keep them going. Now, the adaptations of a capillary is that they are 1 cell thick. Again, we need to use that terminology. They are 1 cell thick. That means that they're incredibly thin, so substances can easily diffuse across them. So oxygen can diffuse across the outside of a capillary. So glucose can diffuse across the outside of capillaries. Okay? Really important, because this is where, as I say, that exchanging of substances takes place. So if you'd like to pause the video, take what you want from that. We need to know, obviously, the name, what they do, and what adaptations they have. Okay, so quick quiz. There's only going to be 3 questions on this. Don't need to write it down. Just say it in your head or out loud if you want. Microscopic blood vessel which has a wall that is only 1 cell thick. Which one is that? Capillaries. A blood vessel which has a very thick wall and narrow lumen. Which one's that? Arteries. A blood vessel which has a thinner wall and larger lumen is going to be veins. Okay, so some proper questions now, just to demonstrate our understanding. There's only 3 parts to it. State the function of each of the following blood vessels. Describe how the structure of the blood vessel relates to its function. So if you could do this without looking at your notes, that will be great. So A for arteries is going to be worth 3 marks. B for veins is going to be worth 3 marks. C, capillaries, is only going to be 2 marks. So can you pause the video and can you have a go at that? If it is a total of 8 marks, then you should be taking at least 8 minutes in writing them. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at that, describing how the function of the blood vessel relates to its function. So grab a different coloured pen or a pencil, and we'll go through where we get the marks from. So if you said that for A, is talking about arteries, if you said that arteries carry blood away from the heart, that is a mark, that is its function. They've got a thick wall of muscle, or thick muscular wall. Any words to that effect? It's going to be a mark. Because it's under huge amounts of pressure, So if you said, so they can stretch as the blood is forced through, but just under large amount of pressure will be absolutely fine. And that's where you're going to get your 3 marks. So arteries carry blood away from the heart under huge amounts of pressure, so they have thick muscular walls would be a perfect answer. Okay, B for veins. So veins carry blood towards the heart. The blood is returning to the heart, and they've got much thinner walls because they are under less pressure, and they have valves which stops the blood going the wrong way or stops backflow of blood. And the last one, capillaries. These are where the diffusion of substances takes place, and you could say that they are 1 cell thick. That would be worth the mark, and then that's a total of 2 marks. So relatively straightforward. It's not a particularly tricky topic, this bit, the blood vessels, but it is stuff that we do need to remember, and we do need to know the 3 names, what they do, and how they're adapted for it. Okay, so we're going to move on to how these kind of come together to make our circulatory system. In humans and all of the mammals, we are a mammal, we have got a double circulatory system. So there's kind of 2 parts. Double means 2. So there's 2 parts to it. Whereas animals such as fish have got a single circulatory system. We're going to have a look at what the difference is between those 2. So these are mammalian 1, and we get something that looks like this. So you can see that there are kind of 2 sides to the heart. We've got the left-hand side and we've got the right-hand side. The one side, I'm not going to say which side is which because that is a complicated bit which we'll talk about when doing the heart, because the left is right and the right is left. One side of the heart takes blood to the lungs so that it can get oxygen, and then it goes back to the heart. So all it does is go to the lungs, grab some oxygen, goes back to the heart. And then the other side of the heart will then push that blood all the way around your body. So it's got 2 sides to that heart, so that's why it's called a double circulatory system. In these organisms, so we've got squid, fish, some insects and worms, you have a single circulatory system. So you have a heart, but it pumps it to the gills, and then it goes straight from the gills to the rest of the body. And then it goes back to the heart again. So it's only 1 single loop, whereas with the double it's got 2 loops. Okay. So as I've just spoken about, and you can take notes on any of these, but don't just copy it out because it's far more than you need. Just take the key points. So we have a double circulatory system. You need to know that. You don't need to know in detail about the single circulatory system, but you do need to know a few things about the double circulatory system. So in a double circulatory system, one transport system, so one side, carries blood from the heart to the lungs. And then it goes back again. And that means that it can get the oxygen and get rid of the carbon dioxide. The other side will then pump that oxygenated blood, it contains oxygen, oxygenated blood, to the rest of the body and back again. And as we can see on this animation, how that works. Okay, now you don't need to write any of this bit, but the double circulatory system is really important for warm-blooded organisms such as ourselves. Okay, that's because all of our cells require a lot of energy, and to get that energy, they need glucose and they need oxygen. And the only way they're going to get that glucose and oxygen is from this circulatory system. So by having this double circulatory system, it makes it much more efficient. That means we can get much more oxygen and glucose and other things to all of our cells. So very, very useful. Okay, the last bit for me, is this is a relatively short lesson. The last bit for me is a 4-mark question from an exam. It says, explain what is a double circular... Start again. Explain what is a double circulatory system and explain why it is required in humans. And it's going to be worth 4 marks. So you should be taking about 4 minutes. And we need to get 4 main points into it. So if you pause the video now and have a go at that. Okay, so grab a different colour pen or a pencil and we'll go through those answers. So you might have said that in a double circulatory system there's 2 sides of the heart, or you could have said that there's 2 loops in the system. You hopefully said that one side will pump blood to the lungs to become oxygenated and the other side pumps it to the body. You can then say that this means that the blood is pumped by the heart twice each time it goes around the body. And then that causes it to be under higher pressure so that it gets pushed to all of the cells in an animal. Okay, so hopefully we got all of those, or some of those. The last point will be the trickier one, so well done if you did get that and spoke about a higher pressure. Something I didn't really talk about but was on the slide. That would be your higher level answer, getting that in. Okay, oh no, done that. So that's it. Hopefully from this we're now able to state what the 3 blood vessels are. So arteries, veins, capillaries. Hopefully we're able to say how the structure relates to the function. So capillaries, 1 cell thick walls, maximum diffusion. Arteries, thick muscular walls because it's under high pressure. And veins have valves to stop the blood going backwards. And then for 7 to 8, explain the importance of a double circulatory system. So enabling it to be much more efficient so that we can get enough glucose and oxygen to all of our cells and keeps it under much higher pressure to push it around. Okay, so I hope we enjoyed that. There is not a huge amount on Doddle for this. There's only, I think, 2 tasks that I found that were to do with this. So hopefully that means that you'll have a bit of a break over the bank holiday weekend. And we will be back on the Monday where we'll be starting week 6, where we're going to be looking at the structure of the heart and problems with the heart. Okay, have a lovely weekend, Year 9. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I will be back with you next week. Okay, bye-bye.